All right, so tonight we got Derik Kline from Hail Trace with us. For those of you who don't know, Hail Trace is a company that they specialize in reporting hail, when, where, how big, and with extremely detailed information. Derik, you want to maybe tell us a little bit about your company?
Sure. So we're obviously kind of a weather consulting company is what we call ourselves. We are the only hail mapping company out there that uses meteorologists to make our maps. Everybody out there uses an algorithm. Some have their own algorithm. Some are better than others. But we have an algorithm built into our radar, but then we use meteorologists to actually go through and analyze every storm that happens across the U.S. So anything quarter size hail or larger, we make a map for it. And then on top of that, we can help people with marketing and doing different marketing strategies around that hailstorm. So that's kind of us in a nutshell.
See, I think most of us understand the hail reporting part, but what are some of the other products you offer? You said the marketing materials.
Yeah, so we can send direct mail pieces out to areas, and we would target those directly to the swath of hail. So you could literally call me and say, I want to send a direct market piece to people that were hit with golf ball size hail or larger, and we would target those people as our target for that direct mail piece. Obviously, with direct mail, your high volume, low return is kind of your strategy with that. We recommend to do that with other marketing as well to really try to boost those numbers. But in addition to that, we also do banner ads. So we could take, if you've ever been on like ESPN.com or just different websites, you see the little banners that show up. We could actually put banner ads like that, but direct and target those into the hail swath. So to people that were impacted by hail, we could put a banner that says, "Let us fix your car."
Where does that banner go?
It goes all. I mean, we would basically target homes inside of the hail swath, but it would go to anybody that's online on, through Google's list of different, different advertisers that allow people to post on their websites.
Oh, that's very cool. Okay,
that's a per impression deal. So if you've done pay per click, after a hailstorm, they get a little expensive. But you can do this by the impression. So for 4 cents an impression, we can bounce this in front of people as many times as you want us to.
So the hail reports you get, is it based solely on the radar that you see, or do you do any research on the ground, like actual confirming damage, et cetera?
We do, yeah. We actually have some tools that allow us to go through and plot or geocode different pictures and reports that come in through social media. And typically what we'll do is try to figure out exactly where those are and then verify what that looks like on the actual hail map itself or on the radar itself. So let's say that we see a picture of 2-inch hail and we can figure out exactly where that is. That enables us to go in and figure out what time that occurred at and what the storm looked like at that time. So then we can map the rest of the storm properly to show all the areas that would have been hit with that type of hail. Okay,
so you got some pretty cool algorithms going on there that all overlap.
Yeah, definitely. We're using a lot of different resources. We have 3 meteorologists in the office that are mapping and doing all kinds of different things all at the same time.
So you got 3 meteorologists there?
3, yes.
Go ahead, Paul.
Just a quick question. This may be obvious, but I don't know it. How long has Hail Trace been around, number one? And then number 2, was the original purpose specifically for PDR, or was there another purpose, or is that now your current purpose?
It's really, we use it obviously for the restoration industry is what we say. So Hail Trace started in 2010, was when we kind of started it. Honestly, it was, I kind of just stumbled across the idea, really. I've always been kind of a weather nerd, is what I say. Yeah. I'm not from the restoration industry. In fact, if you would have told me 10 years ago that hail does damage to anything other than a car, I would have had no idea that it does. So, so basically just a storm hit Oklahoma City back in May of 2010. I'm sure that was probably a little too big for the PDR industry.
I was there, man. It was bad. It was softball size. It was real bad.
Oh yeah, I'd obliterate everything that it touched is gone. And so, but a friend of my mom's was in the roofing industry and asked me if I could put together a map. And that's kind of how I got started with hail trace. So it was
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah, that's very
kind of
cool.
fun.
Yeah,
So-
we're nerds about weather too. We only care about one kind of weather.
Yeah. Well, that's what I always tell people. Like when we do our forecasting, which I think some of you guys maybe saw this morning, we do a forecast based around hail. We don't talk about tornadoes. We're not life safety. It doesn't. I mean, there are meteorologists out there that do that, and it's a good thing that they do. But that's not what we're about at Hail Trace. We want to talk about hail, and we're looking for places where damaging hail might occur. So,
Right.
So, how accurate is are your products as far as the hail reporting?
We think that it varies based off of different radar locations, and depending on how close you are to the radar site. So most large population cities have a radar in that city that we would have access to. Now we use a radar called dual pole radar, which enables us. It shoots out a beam that comes out horizontally and then one that comes out vertically, and so that enables us to pick up some shape in the actual objects that are falling. So think about it this way: a raindrop falls, and the way that gravity works with the raindrop, it actually flattens it out like a pancake. So all the air pushing on it makes it flatten it out. So raindrops look like a pancake, and so whenever we shoot a beam out like this and one like this, we can pick up that shape. Okay. So we can see that it's a raindrop. Well, hailstones, they're weighted differently, and so what they actually do is they tend to tumble, and so they fall even if they're flat. I mean, you've probably seen some hailstones that were kind of like that, but even if they're flat, they still have a tendency to tumble, and so that creates a round shape. So that radar allows us to see that round shape, and so
you can see the hail in the skies.
Yeah, exactly, and so that kind of has a tendency to be able to depict the different shapes, which enables us to be more accurate. Now, the further away from the radar we are, the harder it is to be accurate. Now, using those social media tools really helps us out a lot because we can pinpoint some of that down and find some of the inaccuracies with the radar. Right. But, for example, if I'm in Idabel, Oklahoma, and I don't know if anybody knows where that is or not, but it's a little town of about 13 or 14,000 people in the southeast corner of Oklahoma. The closest radar to Idabel is either Fort Smith, Arkansas, or Dallas, Texas. It's kind of right in the middle of it, but it's about 100-something miles away from either side. And so my bottom scan, the lowest level of that storm that I'm going to scan is going to be about 9,000 or 10,000 feet off the ground. So I'm looking pretty high up in the storm, which is really putting me at that same level of advantage as people with an algorithm, because that's typically where they're reading the hail at, is a little higher in the storm, and that's kind of where you get some of those discrepancies at. So that's, but like I said, if it's in a city, there's a radar close by. I mean, Oklahoma City is in Norman, Dallas is on the south side of Fort Worth, and anything within about 60 miles of that, 70 miles of that, we're pretty spot on with it.
Okay, well, since it's still February, we're having some hail going on. It makes me wonder, is it just because it's heating up? Because it's 70 degrees in St. Louis, 65.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, is there a perfect condition for hail? Is it just warm days, or is there other factors that contribute to it?
You got to have moisture too. So you want it to be humid. So I'm looking at a map here right now. So dew point is the measure of moisture in the atmosphere. So the dew point in St. Louis is 20 right now, which is extremely dry. So even though you're warm, you're extremely dry. So that's actually making the atmosphere fairly stable. Now in Dallas, it's 75 and 60 right now. And that warm, moist air is actually lifting north into Oklahoma. It'll make it into Oklahoma just in time for the cold front to get there and set off some storms tonight. And so you got to have moisture, you got to have heat, and then you got to have a lifting mechanism. And that could be a cold front, it could be a dry line, a storm system, anything like that. So you get those three pieces for the most part, and some shear to throw in there, then you get the chance for hail.
Yeah, there's so many wording there. I go to SPC and watch the convective outlooks, and I'll look at the map like everybody else, and then I go to the wording, and I just skim through it, and there's so many crazy words. I don't know if those meteorologists are toying with us by all the meters. And I just skim through to where I see the word hail, and then I back up and read the beginning of the sentence. That's all I care about.
That's right.
There's some serious stuff going in there, isn't there? Some science.
Oh yeah. There's all kinds of stuff that we're looking at, but just to kind of dumb it down, that's one of the big ones that you'll see on there is CAPE, CAPE. It's actually an abbreviation. The higher that number, the better. So, I mean, for example, tonight, today's not exactly we're not setting the world on fire with our health rate today, but it is there. And so the Cape with today's is probably running between 1,000 and 1,500 joules per kilogram is what they measure it in, which is pretty decent. In May, though, I mean, we'll see numbers push 6,000-7,000.
Wow.
So I mean, we're nowhere near. Now, the one thing to keep in mind with this year that we really like is the last several years, the Gulf of Mexico just kept getting swept with these really strong cold fronts. It really cooled the water off a lot, pushed all the moisture all the way down to really Cuba and past the Yucatan Peninsula. So whenever a storm would come out early in the year, it would take forever to pull the moisture up. So we could get that one ingredient that we needed. And thus, we really didn't have any hail until March 24th, which was the latest in recorded history for the U.S.
Last year.
Yeah, last year.
Yeah, that leads me up to my next question was what happened last year? Why? I mean, it was a horrible year for hail. I've never seen anything like that in my 15 years.
Yeah, we had two things that really got us pretty bad last year. So the first was what I was just talking about with the cold fronts that kept sweeping the Gulf of Mexico. So it was out for business. It was on vacation all last year. Right now it's not. It's wide open. So we had no moisture in Texas as of this morning, and it's all the way up to it's actually crossed over the Red River now and is moving into Oklahoma. So within 6 to 8 hours, it's moved all the way across Texas. We couldn't do that last year, so we didn't get hail. Once we finally got the moisture here, we were in what's an El Nino, which is what we're in this year. But we were in a weak El Nino that was moving to a strengthening El Nino. Typically what that does is it gives us a really strong subtropical jet. And when you get that subtropical jet that's real strong, it basically removed the cap, which the cap is like a lid on our atmosphere. So what happened is the sky just lit up with thunderstorms. And so we would start out initially with a little bit of hail, and then everything would just merge into this huge complex that would move all the way across the country, and we'd be cloudy and rainy. And so we couldn't get the heat that we needed. Another ingredient that we were missing was the heat that time. And so that was really, it was just every time a storm would happen, they would just merge into these big complexes. There's a reason why Dallas and Oklahoma and that whole area, really the Southeast, everybody got a ton of rain last year.
Yeah.
So
when you go on to the convective outlooks and we see, usually the day one is the one we want the most because it shows specific for hail. And if it's like in the 15% range, I almost get excited about that over the 45% with the hash marks, because it seems like every time they project huge amounts of big hail, it just blows right through. And it's the 15% storms that really do the damage.
Yeah, a lot of times that will happen. So, usually, so sometimes the lift can be too strong. It can actually overpower. It can overpower the storm system. So we lose all the sunshine, all the heating, all the instability. And so when that happens, you just get too many thunderstorms. And so there's always, as a storm chaser, which we'll chase storms, not for the purpose of fixing cars, but to see tornadoes and hail.
Right.
We'll see, lots of different things, and some of the different things that we'll see, that we'll look at the cap, and, it goes both ways. The cap can be too strong, which can keep thunderstorms from developing, and the cap can be too weak, which can let too many thunderstorms develop. So it's really kind of neat to watch and see how it just takes just this perfect condition, and that's the only way that you can create the hailstorm. So all the different things that it goes into to make just perfect conditions for hail on a consistent basis is really pretty amazing.
And you sit there and watch it develop. Yeah. When you're watching it, you can sit there and go, it's getting ready to happen right there.
Oh yeah, we see it all the time. So
call me next time you see that.
Right?
No, I'm kidding. All right, so back to today's hail. What are you guys seeing for tonight's hail through, I guess it was Oklahoma area mostly?
Yeah, it looks like mainly Oklahoma. It might try to shift into Arkansas a little bit, but more than likely it'll be a little too stable by the time the storms get there. So the one thing that we're lacking with this round is the heat. Storms really aren't going to fire until after midnight. So with that being said, we instead of being 75, it's going to be 60. Now the storms are actually going to develop. There's different levels in the atmosphere, and these storms are going to develop a little higher up off the ground than what you would typically see in the spring. So they're called elevated thunderstorms, or they'll be elevated supercells. And so those will actually be those will be what we're watching. So if we can get some rotation in those storms, the cold air aloft is pretty strong tonight. So that's really what's going to make tonight happen. Is we need to have if we can keep some storms isolated a little bit, I think we'll get some big hail out of them. And it really, the southern end of the complex is going to be somewhere along I-40, which would place it around Oklahoma City. So, we'll kind of see.
What is it about? I mean, I know the general area, the Red River Valley or Tornado Alley they talk about. But what is it about towns like Oklahoma City, Wichita, that seem to get hit every single year, and not just hit, but monster hail? Is it the city heat or something, or is that just? No,
I mean, it's kind of hard. I mean, I've got some theories, but there's not really a proven method. The only city that I can tell you, there's a couple of cities. So the number one city to get hit with hail every year is Rapid City, South Dakota, believe it or not. At least for golf ball size hail or larger.
Right.
Denver's going to be up there with him as well.
Mm-hmm.
The reason Denver and that area, they're going to get hail every year, and the reason is the mountains. The mountains cause the lift that we need to create the hail. So the wind blows up the mountain, it causes the thunderstorm, and it rolls off into Denver, and they get hit with hail. So that's why Denver gets hit. Now, they get hit with a different kind of hail. It's usually a little smaller. It's not quite as big. So you're usually, instead of softball or baseball size hail with them, they get $quarter to $half with a few golf balls mixed in. But it's really hard hail, and it's a high volume of hail. So you might get half a foot of hail. Now, my theory for the plains is, so in Oklahoma, we have an area that we call the timberline. And that's basically I-35. So from the east of I-35, there's a lot of trees. And to the west of I-35, it's basically desert land. So my theory is most of the severe weather that occurs in Oklahoma occurs on the dry line. So we have this area of dry air that gets blown into Oklahoma when these storm systems come out. It's from sinking air off the mountains, causes the air to heat up and dry out. And that area moves into Oklahoma. And my theory is that trees and plants cause moisture. And so we have all this moisture, all these trees and plants in eastern Oklahoma. And so when that happens, I just have this theory that it kind of slows the dry line down. It has more moisture that it interacts with, which causes it to slow down and almost stall, setting it up for thunderstorms to fire just to the west of Oklahoma City, hit their prime intensity, and then hit Oklahoma City. And that would be the same thing for Wichita. They're basically in that same area. Same thing for Dallas. All three of those cities typically get hit. And probably one of the weirdest things about Oklahoma is how often Oklahoma City gets hit, but how often Tulsa does not get hit.
Yeah, I agree. I've worked in Tulsa in 2007, and it hasn't really had anything significant since then.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how that happens. And I mean, I think weather goes through cycles too. So I would be shocked if Tulsa doesn't have a cycle where they get hit, pretty often again. I think the last real crazy active cycle they had was back in the 90s. They had a lot of tornadoes up there, and Oklahoma City was actually in more of a drought. So I think the weather can kind of go through those cycles too.
So those are the cities that get hit. What about, I mean, we all watch these weather patterns, especially when they're coming to our home city, and we watch this big cell. We know that if they start to train, I guess as they call them, they kind of die out. But when it's that big cell and it's coming towards your city, and you're up at 11:30 eating popcorn watching Mike Bettis, and then it just splits off around the city every time. Is there a reason for that?
It's common for supercells to split. I've seen that a couple storms that I can think of specifically where there's three really strong tornadoes that hit Moore, Oklahoma. We had the one in '99. There was another one in 2003, and then another one in 2000, and there was one in 2008, and then there was one in 2013 as well.
That was a bad one.
Yeah, they tend to get.
Well, 99 was the F5, right?
Yes, yeah. So was 2013. Those are both F5s for more.
Okay.
But most of those, what they did, they were moving directly northeast toward downtown Oklahoma City, and right before they got here, they kind of turned and went to the east. and then they went through more. And then right after they passed downtown, they actually turned and went back to the northeast. Now, I don't know if the urban heat island, because there is an urban heat island effect in all cities, if that caused that storm to kind of bounce off of it. I don't know that it necessarily would bounce off it as much as it would grab that heat from the city. And that heat is, it's fuel for the thunderstorm. And so if you actually look at it, the storm actually intensified when it made that turn to it's called a right turn, which is pretty common in a supercell thunderstorm when it intensifies. And so my theory is that heat might have actually caused the storm to intensify, which caused it to make that right turn. And then after it kind of pulled away a little bit, it loses a little bit of it and lifts off to the north and weakens.
So it almost slingshots it away from it.
Yeah.
So somebody mentioned right here about cloud seeding. What do you know about that? I know you're familiar with it.
Yeah. I mean, people talk about it all the time. I haven't seen a whole lot into it. I mean, people were talking a lot about the contrail stuff. That's just that's going on forever. Yeah. So that's nothing. That's just conspiracy theory stuff. Cloud seeding. I mean, they've done some tests on cloud seeding. I've never heard of any real results.
So a big storm coming through Oklahoma. If whoever's doing the cloud seeding, or if they were a big supercell coming towards Edmond or wherever, if they were to seed the clouds, it's not going to really do much damage to break up the hail.
I hope that it wouldn't. I mean, honestly, we can't be messing with storms like that. The reason why. So everything on this earth is a checks and balances. Okay, so when we get a big thunderstorm, it's because the atmosphere has become too unstable, and that thunderstorm is its way of stabilizing itself. So you start killing these thunderstorms, and all of a sudden we don't have a release valve for our planet. Same thing with hurricanes. I mean, they're just a big release valve. They take heat and moisture from the equator and transport it to the Arctic.
So it's Mother Nature doing its job, basically.
That's what it's supposed to do. So we don't want to stop.
Okay. All right. So March hail forecast. What do you see for March as compared to last year? Is it going to be an early season for hail, or?
Yeah, definitely going to be earlier. I mean, we haven't had anything up to this point yet. So we've already had several okay storms this year. We had a nice Houston storm. Del Rio was a really good storm. Obviously, it's Del Rio, but it was a good storm. North Carolina and Virginia have some activity, and we've done quite a bit of stuff in Mississippi, although Mississippi's kind of tough to get anything out of there. But
never worked there.
Yeah, there's not a lot to it, so we just drove through it not too long ago. So it just kind of, I would expect this year is going to be quite a bit more active. We're shooting for probably close to average, with the best potential for March being in the southeast. So you're talking Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, and the Carolinas. The Plains, Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, Missouri, they should probably do pretty close to average, which anytime you're at average in the Plains, that's not too bad. And then, of course, it's still a little early in the year. So we'll have to wait till April and May up there.
All right. And then 2016 predictions overall.
Overall,
some of us have seen your video, but if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, we don't mind at all. Yeah, we expect overall for the nation to run right about average, with the southeast and the northern plains having the best opportunity to go above average. A lot of the trends that we've seen are really trying to match up with 1998, which would actually put us above average for the year. So we haven't had an above average hail season since 2012 in the U.S. So we're on a pretty big dry spell right now, and so we're definitely due. We do expect 2017 is going to be well above average. Get ready.
Next year is supposed to be well above average?
Yeah, I mean, we'd say right now about an 80% chance that next year is above average.
So how do you see that far ahead? Is that the El Nino pattern?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. So we look a little bit more specifically. So a lot of people that we've seen do forecasts have been, it's El Nino, so this is what the weather's going to be like. What we actually look into is what part of the El Nino phase are we in, and then what typically happens after that. Our El Nino peaked back in December. It tied the record as the strongest El Nino. And so what really happens is that So we see, so every time, again, checks and balances with the earth, every time we get in a strong El Nino, we've always gone into a strong La Nina the following year. Every time. And then if you look at that switch going from a strong El Nino to a strong La Nina, every time that's happened, the U.S. has had huge hail seasons and tornado seasons, both of them. The last time it happened was 2011, which I think most people would say that was a really, really
best year I've ever seen. Yeah,
it's number one in the books. I mean, you can't find it.
Yeah.
The number 2 year was 2008. That was also one of those years. Another year was 1999. So that was another big year. And then there were a couple other ones back in the past as well. They're a little harder to track back there just because we don't have the same reporting techniques as we do today. But yeah, so I mean, everything says that next year is going to be a big year. Everything says that this year is going to be really close to average so, you would, if you're going to say below average, average, and above average, you're going to say about a 20% chance to be below average this year, about a 50% chance to be near average, and then about a 30% chance to be above average.
That's this year.
That's this year, yeah.
Okay. Keith Shapiro wants to know how accurate do you think the Farmer's Almanac is as opposed to the data that you actually seen if you read the Farmer's Almanac?
I actually have not read the Farmer's Almanac, so you'd have to tell me what they say.
I don't know. I don't read it. I mean, if it's a really boring year and I'm sitting around, I might go buy one at the Walmart just to see, okay, what's next month going to be like?
I should read it because I get asked about it all the time, but I never read it.
All right. So your hail trace, what different plans do you have?
Sure.
And as far as plans, maps, etc.
Yeah, so we do individual maps, which so you can just purchase those. On our website, you see a good hailstorm, you want to go work it. They're $200 for an individual map. We have a plan called a Pick 10. We actually created this specifically for PDR companies. The Pick 10 is basically you get 10 maps anywhere in the U.S. plus you get all of our hail alerts. Our hail alerts are sent out a little different. Most of the guys send out. Somebody calls in a report for golf ball size hail, you get a text message that report came in. Our hail alerts are actually sent out from a meteorologist. So when, for example, in Del Rio, when the storm moved into Del Rio, we knew it was already producing golf ball size hail before a report came in. We sent out a text message to our client base saying that Del Rio was being hit with golf ball size hail. And then with that Pick 10, you get 10 maps in addition to those text alerts. Okay. So that one we charge $1,500, and that's for a whole year. So that would give you access to that. We also do city plans so let's say you're a PDR company, but you stay in the same city. We've got several clients like that. So maybe you work like the Oklahoma City Metro or the Dallas Metro, or you can sign up for those. Those are $700 for the year, and it comes with every map that we do in that city. For the entire year, plus our alerts for that city. We do the same thing for states, and we do the same thing for the nation. So the states are $1,250 a year, and the whole nation is $3,500 for the year. So the whole nation comes with every map, hail alerts. You can call and talk to our meteorologist with all those plans. These are more like consulting plans.
That's the part I like. You said you could talk to the meteorologist.
Yes.
So if you're on that year plan, and you're a full-time hail chaser, a bigger company, medium-sized company, and you've got 3 different options: Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Columbus, Ohio.
Right. If
I were to call you and say, hey, Derik, man, I'm stuck. I'm on my way to Ohio. Which spot would you recommend? Is that a question that you could answer based on your information?
Definitely. And my question for you is how much money could you make if you went to the right one, and how much money could you lose if you went to the wrong one?
Absolutely. So, okay. So you do get those questions asked, and you answer those too?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to several clients just about North Carolina. We had one of our guys. He said, I want to work 10 storms this year. He said, should North Carolina be one of ours? And my feedback to him was, and he, was tip on an average year, or we'll just use last year for example. We did I think 13 4-star maps and 5 5-star maps. This was a 3-star map. There's going to be a better storm for you to go work. And it was pretty far for him to travel as well. And the hail wasn't, it was okay in North Carolina, but it wasn't just it didn't set the world on fire.
Right.
If the Henderson storm and the Oxford storm maybe went through Raleigh or something like that, then yeah, it would have been a really great storm. But
that's where we narrowed it down, was Henderson and Oxford.
Yeah.
There's other stuff out there too.
Yeah, those were good ones. we could tell as soon as they were happening on radar that they were producing big hail. And the Oxford storm moved through Durham, but it just didn't get started until right after. We kept watching and waiting, hoping it would take off. But
so if they want to get a hold of you, what's your contact info? Email, phone number, website?
Yeah, so you can it's probably the easiest way, so you don't misspell my name, is just info@hailtrace.com. So that'll come directly to me. I forward that right to my email address. Another great way is just to give us a call on our toll-free number. It's 855-334-HAIL or 4245 is HAIL if you don't know that on the phone.
Okay.
So that's a way. And then, of course, our website, hailtrace.com, is an easy way to get a hold of us as well.
Okay.
I got a question.
I was going to say, get some more questions in here. There you go.
So my question to you is, what are the top 3 industries that subscribe to Hail Trace? And then what other industries do you see that subscribe that we would be surprised to find out about? Sorry about the glare, guys.
Yeah, no, you're all right. Top 3 would definitely be PDR, roofing, and probably insurance. Adjusters might be kind of close in that area.
Yeah.
So insurance / adjusters would be number 3. Some weird ones that we've had. Attorneys, sometimes, some of the attorneys that fight. So we have some of those guys. HVAC guys. Hail event the HVAC units, especially on commercial properties. So we've had some of those guys.
Yeah. Wow.
That was one that I definitely didn't see when we started the company.
Yeah.
We've had some farmers.
Farmers?
Yeah. So checking on their crop damage and stuff like that, or trying to.
Yeah, I can see that.
Crops.
Making maybe buying the plan for their city.
Yeah.
Or they're buying a hail blanket for their crops.
They're right. They might get paid more money
when
their stuff gets hit.
Maybe
the insurance.
They seed their own stuff. So, all right, I was going to let the guys ask some questions. Kevin Going just asked, how does Florida look this year, or the Southeast in general? I think you answered the Southeast, but he might not have been here.
Yeah, I think the Southeast obviously looks like they're going to have the best hail season. When you're talking about Florida, you really need to go probably Gainesville to the north as having the best opportunity at hail. But it can happen anywhere. There's a pretty good storm. Was that Stanford in Florida last year? That was kind of late in the year. The key to take away is the Southeast is going to have a pretty active storm track. So if we can get the right setups, there'll be quite a bit of hail. And we're just
Florida different with it coming off the water as far as being able to track the hail?
Yeah, I mean, it's really low. There's a couple of things. It's really low in elevation. So, if you've got a storm with a 3,000-foot base, and it's in Oklahoma City, well, Oklahoma City is 1,200 elevation, so it's 2,200 feet to fall. In Florida, they're like 10 foot. So it literally has to fall the entire 3,000 feet. It's also it's usually a lot warmer in Florida, more humid. The storm mode is usually a little bit different in Florida as well. It's more common to not be capped up as well in Florida, partially because of how much moisture there is. It doesn't allow for a cap to develop because the moisture is so thick in Florida. So the moisture goes from the ground and it goes way up into the atmosphere. So it keeps everything uncapped, which allows for a lot of storms to develop, which makes it hard to produce instability and hard to produce hail.
Makes sense.
So that's usually what you see, but that's why usually Gainesville to the north, the moisture is not quite as bad. It's funny because we talk about how we need moisture, and then we talk about how we have too much moisture. So
too much, it floods it out or drowns it out.
Yeah, it goes both ways.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I'll ask anybody else if they have any questions, or if you want to grab that last seat and come in and ask a question before we get off. I know Derek's. It's almost 5 o'clock. Or you might be working late tonight, huh?
Probably. I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too. Anybody else got any questions they want to come on and talk about? Paul?
No, I think it's interesting. I heard you, Derik. I heard you say that we're tracking like 98 this year in 2016.
Yeah.
And so what's interesting to us in the Mid Atlantic region is that 99 was a big year for us.
Yes.
If you guys remember. So. And I believe that makes sense because I think in 99, that was the year after the strong El Nino in 97, was it?
Yeah, 90.
So it was
the winter
2 years after the peak.
The winter of 98, which is basically what we're doing right now. So the spring of '98, we would have been in a El Nino, but trending out of it, which is what we're doing right now. And then '99, we were in El Nino, which is what we'll be in 2017.
So I'm going to expect not much this year, and hopefully next year is the big one.
Yeah, the Mid-Atlantic is kind of that area. Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, there weren't a lot of trends saying that it was going to be a great year up there. So, but, I mean, it can happen. You get, I mean, Boston obviously had a huge storm last year. That was one event, but you can't make a forecast based off of one event, especially when you're talking long-term stuff. But, it's.
Well, I think we all know it can hail anywhere at any given time. It's just the outlooks we can really prepare for.
I mean, it's, we can put together, I always tell, a lot of people like to take our percentages and stuff, and just take them straight to the bank. But typically when we do a percentage, we're talking about the odds of a storm hitting one particular location, not the odds of there being a storm.
Right.
So if I tell you that Oklahoma City has a 20% chance of hail tonight, I'm saying that there's a 20% chance that it's going to hail in Oklahoma City. But if you were to ask me what is the chance of there being a hail report in Oklahoma tonight, I'd probably say about 80 or 90% chance that we're going to have some hail reports in Oklahoma.
Right.
There's a 20% chance that they're going to be in Oklahoma City. So, that's something to always keep in mind. See, somebody talked about 98 being a big year in Minneapolis, which is why we forecasted the Northern Plains and the Southeast. That's one of the reasons.
All right. One more guy wants to know about Minnesota. He said 98 was a good year in Minneapolis. What are you thinking about this year?
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, we think the Southeast and the Northern Plains have the best chance at being above average this year. So, again, to say that Minneapolis will get a storm is pretty tough, but if they're going to happen up in that area, they usually tend to hit Minneapolis anyway. So,
okay. Well, we appreciate you getting on here, man. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to get a hold of him, again, it's info@hailtrace.com. Or you can go to the website, hailtrace.com. And I did buy my first map last week, and we ended up getting a shop out of it, so it actually helped us out. So
awesome.
Nice.
So
awesome.
It did work. First time I used it.
Great.
Anything else, anybody? I think that's it. Somebody is talking HVC. Somebody else wants to come visit you. That's John Fisher down in Oklahoma City.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right. Well, thanks again, man. And maybe we get you on again later on in the year or something.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great info.
All right. Thanks, buddy. See you guys. Thanks, Paul.
You.
All right, guys.
All right.
We'll see you.
Bye. All right. That was fun, Paul.
Sweet, man. Glad I